Hi, I'm Charlie Collins, and we're talking sport. And you're very welcome to Talking Sport with myself, Charlie Collins. My guests in studio this week are Martin McHugh, GAA pundit, and from the Donegal Democrat, their sports reporter, Alan Foley. You're all both very welcome.
Thanks, Charlie.
We'll be hearing from Ryder Cup captain Paul McGinley a little bit later in the programme. He, of course, was at Breffni Park on Sunday to watch Donegal play down in the Ulster Championship semi-final. And it's with that we're going to start and look back briefly to the events of Breffni Park. Donegal squeezing through in the end, Martin. Down came with a game plan maybe to stifle them the best they could. And I suppose you could say it pretty much worked.
Yeah, well, James McCartan's getting a lot of credit in the papers since the game with the plan he had. So it always was something was probably going to happen. That some team was going to play Donegal the exact same way as Donegal play, and then you're going to end up with an interesting game. I mean, look at some of the stats of it. Ryan McHugh kicked a wide with the last kick of the game, basically, and that was the only second wide that Donegal kicked in the game. They only kicked 3 wides against Tyrone in the game.
That's right. I think the first wide was 56 minutes. Rory Cavan, Martin, sorry.
Right, so that's the two wides came that late on. Yeah. And then, you know, suppose it was the way the game is going, you know, it's the way it is, you know. The one thing that, from a GAA point of view, was the amount of big hits that's going in. The game is getting very physical. It's a lot more physical in a different way than it was in my time. And that's the one thing that, looking at it, you know, that you look at 2 Donegal players out with concussion after 20 minutes and 2 more on the ground, and the 4 of them hit by the 1 player. And I don't even know did that player pick up a yellow card for it, you know. So the game is getting very, very physical now. Because I actually was watching something on television there, 50 best goals or something, and I had the TV turned down, I was on the phone, and I watched, there was a goal coming up, and I thought it was a minor game between Donegal and Tyrone. It was actually the 2007 match between Donegal and Tyrone, Raymond Mulgrew's goal. And they were like minors compared to the present day players. Yeah. So it's the one thing that I think referees are going to have to look at it, that is far more physical, the game now. And that was a physical, tough, hard, nasty game.
And it's bound to be, Alan, because if both sides are playing the sort of mass defence that we saw on Sunday, and those 2 teams are not the only ones that are going to be playing that way this year, there's going to be more opportunities for that type of big hitting that we're seeing.
Absolutely. I think you could really see the Niall Mona influence on Down. He's a pretty well-famed defensive coach. I suppose sooner or later somebody was going to just try and play Donegal at their own game, but the thing is Donegal are a little bit longer in the tooth to be at it longer, Charlie. And also I suppose with Colin McFadden and Michael Murphy, they played in bursts, but they showed their class as well. Paddy McBaird had a bit of an off day, but he had a bit of a dental problem. He's had a great season so far, but Donegal can probably suit playing 12 players back a bit more than anybody else because of them 3 lads up front. They have a really explosive full forward line, but it made for pretty harsh viewing. It wasn't too bad on the day, but we watched it back and it was quite hard to watch it back.
Yeah. I mean, Tyrone did it last year, if you remember, in the semi-final, Martin, as well. They played that way. Down played that way on Sunday. I'm looking at those games and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to play Donegal the way people are perceiving the Donegal play. But the problem they have is they're not going to score enough. They don't seem, these teams, if they play that way, I mean, Down got 3 points from playing in the entire game on Sunday.
But the only thing you look at it is teams with better forwards could cause Donegal problems by playing that way. And I think Donegal are going to have to sit down now and say, right, let's look at one situation here. Like, if you take last year and take Donegal last year at this stage, Carl Lacey was getting up and getting scores. Frank McGlynn was getting up and getting scores in the half-back line. Mark McHugh was getting forward from his position and getting scores. And yet even Neil McGee was getting scores. So at the minute, and then your half-forwards were knocking in with a few scores. The other 2 half-forwards that probably play further up the field. Yeah. But we're getting no scores of them other 2 half-forwards, and the half-backs are not getting forward to score. So that's one thing Donegal's going to have to look at. You know, 11 of the 12 scores came from the 3 boys playing inside, and none of the 3 of them played well. Yeah. McFadden took a couple of scores well, but none of the 3 of them played well. So that's what, if you come up, like we came up against Cork last year, or in the league this year, and Cork played that blanket defence against us, and we struggled because at times we're still trying to hit the full forward line, and I think that's the mistake Donegal made last Sunday. They were trying to hit the ball into the full forward line and then maybe carrying it through and fisting the ball into the full forward, coming right out round the player, coming into traffic. We have to look at a second game plan. There has to be a second thing there. Now, we had it last year, these men. Now, maybe 4 weeks training I'll make a difference to the likes of, say, Mark McHugh's been out a good while, maybe not back to the level he was, just playing that one role, playing defensively. Hopefully Carl Lacey will be back. Frank McGlynn hasn't really out injured as well, hasn't got a chance, but we're going to need them players, right, or else we're going to have to look at doing something with our half forward line to stay further up the field.
Yeah, that's a big concern, Alan, isn't it, really, the injuries? I mean, it is a point that apart from one or two. I mean, Rory Kavanagh missed a game last year, and Eamon McGee missed a game, and the odd person missing a game. This year, the injuries are a real big issue. I mean, if you think about Sunday, you started without Lacey and big Neil Gallagher. You lost Ryan Bradley and David Walsh before half-time. You lost Frank McGlynn at half-time. So the bench has been called upon. But if that sort of rate of injuries continue, there could be trouble down the road.
Absolutely. I think too, if you look at it, like Carl Lacey, Footballer of the Year, Frank McGlynn, nominated Footballer of the Year, Ryan Bradley was probably the best player in Ulster last year, Neil Gallagher's an All-Star centre fielder. So there were big losses. And we're really going to have to use the squad here. Also, the slight worry is the likes of Carl Lacey and Neil Gallagher are going to take time to come back in. Like you've seen with Michael Murphy last year, Charlie, he had an operation in April, I think, but he wasn't really fit until September.
Yeah.
So it's that bedding time. But I suppose the challenge was put up to Donegal on Sunday. There's a lot of young lads come on, the likes of Ryan McHugh, the likes of Ross Wordy, Marty O'Reilly, and they got over the line, as Jim said, even though it wasn't probably the prettiest. And the squad is slightly evolving. I think against Tyrone too, those lads like Martin McElhenney come on and done pretty well. But I think now the further down the track you go, you'll really want your big hitters there, and it's a matter of getting them guys back.
Yeah.
So
key thing, Martin, that they're staying on the front door as well, because if it's the back door, you're going to get matches nearly every week, and that would be a real concern then.
Yeah, but you know what I was just thinking there coming up the road? I was thinking about the back door coming up the road, and I was saying to myself, what teams is going to go into it in the second stage? Forget about the first stage next weekend. The second stage, you have either Leitrim or London. You have Roscommon in it. You have down in Munster. Have you Clare and Waterford going into it? You know, you have some teams, and I mean, a lot of Division 4 go into the second stage of the back door. So, I mean, the back door system is completely another. I don't know where it is. Like, you could be lucky enough, and you could end up getting likes of Leitrim in an All Ireland quarter final. Like, you know, that's what can happen with some one of the big teams. It can happen if the draw goes right for them. Will go with the way they get through. You know, it's interesting about Donegal going back to the injuries thing. They finished with didn't they 6 of the team. There were 6 changes from the team that played in the All Ireland final at the end of the game. So from that point of view, you know, it's okay. I think it's not bad. And you've played 2 Division 1 teams, and like looking at this record that Jim McGuinness has achieved, now he's won 10 Ulster Championship games in a row, won them. Now Joe Kiernan drew 3 of his. He did 10 as well without getting beat. But Jim McGuinness has actually won 10 Ulster Championship. I mean, if they won the Ulster final, you know, for 3 years in a row, I mean, it is a fabulous achievement as far as the team's concerned and the people's concerned. I mean, that first of all is the first thing they look at. You know, it was interesting. I was talking to Banty McEnany last night, and he says our Ulster finals on Sunday. If we beat Cavan, we'll beat Donegal. We have no fear of Donegal. And I was thinking back then, when last did we beat Monaghan? Actually, 1983 was the last time we beat Monaghan. Nudie Hughes, Tommy McDermott, man marked Nudie Hughes that day, and we beat them in Erminstown. Charlie Mulgrew got his jaw broke that day. Yeah, but that was the last time, and we won.
So hopefully Cavan will beat Monaghan then. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying what it is, but
you'd be slightly biased towards Cavan anyway, of course.
Well, I think we just wanted, but that maybe get a chance at Monaghan, but that thing to bed too. That
all right.
we beat
I
them.
think there's only 3 teams since the war have actually won 3 in a row. Armagh on it there, 2004, 5 and 6, and then there was the great down team, I suppose, 59, 16, 61. Yeah, so
some achievement. All right, we're going to leave it there. Plenty to talk about coming up to the Ulster final, of course, when we find out who Donegal are going to be playing. An interested spectator at Breffni Park on Sunday. He flew in on Sunday morning from his home in London, was the Ryder Cup captain Paul McGinley. Paul, of course, a good friend of Jim McGuinness's, and he flew in for the match and flew out then again to try and qualify for the British Open. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. But he's 3 big weeks ahead of him now, playing golf, starting with the Irish Open this weekend. I got the opportunity to get a quick word with him during the halftime break on Sunday, and we started with making the point that Paul McGinley, a great honour for him, of course. He's played in 3 Ryder Cups. He's been vice-captain in 2. He's also been captain twice in the Seve Trophy, but he's the first Irishman ever to captain the Ryder Cup, and he likes that honour, and he's certainly looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, 15, 16 months away. Very busy. I've been up to Gleneagles a number of times and done a lot of commercial things on the back of the Ryder Cup, but also the team matters. The rooms, the team rooms, the bedrooms, the uniforms every day. I mean, if 7 days of uniforms, 2 uniforms a day, that's a lot of putting together off the course as well as on the course. So it's been very busy and communicating with all the players. Not hugely so. It's not really necessary to communicate a lot with them at the moment. I obviously know them all very well and wish them luck and communicate with text at the moment. But this time next year I'll communicate a lot more with them and watch how the team develops and how form is going.
Yeah. Big advantage, you played in 3 and you're vice captain in 2, so that's a help.
Yeah, I think so. To be honest, I think I'm qualified for the team. To be captain, you know, I've put in my time as vice captains and Seve Trophy captains, and all of those things seem to have gone well for me. And delighted to have this opportunity of captaining the team.
I'm glad to see one of your potential players, Justin Rose, winning out in the United States. European players really doing well.
Yeah, it's good to see. I mean, I had a quiet Masters, European players did, so it's nice to see a few of them feature again at the US Open, and I'm sure that'll be the same at the Open Championship now. Hopefully, in the back of that win, you might see a little flurry of good European golf.
Yeah. Will it be an advantage to you to get who you'd want in the team qualified early on, Paul?
Yeah, I want as many players qualified early as possible. I want to see if they've qualified early, that means they've played great. A lot of points available at the start of the year, and I'll be wishing everybody the best. But I'm not going to pick out any favourites that I definitely want him and definitely want him. And I just want to see everybody playing well and wish everybody the best of luck. And the best 12 players hopefully represent Europe.
Yeah. And in terms of your own playing career, I know you're keen to continue that. Is it difficult to do that now with all the responsibility of the Ryder Cup in your hands?
It's difficult but not impossible. I've got a little bit of a run now the next 3 weeks. I've got the Irish Open, the Scottish Open, the French Open, hopefully the Open. I'm qualifying for that tomorrow, and then after that I'll play a little bit in August and September. I'm ahead of the game in terms of Ryder Cup duties at the moment, so I've got a bit of leeway to go now and play with a free mind for the next few months.
And in terms of selection, you've changed it slightly from Jose Morazabal had it, just to give you an extra option there.
Yeah, just a little bit, just to tailor the team should I need to be. Conditions like this, maybe wind and rain could be happening in Gleneagles, and obviously I may have to pick some players that are used to these kind of conditions, and I've played well in them in the past.
Will this be the ultimate for you in terms of your golfing career at this stage now, Paul, captaining the Ryder Cup? Because I know it means so much to you.
Yeah, it's a great honour, obviously, there's no doubt about that, and it's a great honour for Ireland, and when you're voted in by your peers, it's the ultimate honour no matter what business you're in, and in golfing terms, Ryder Cup captaincy is that.
Yeah, and the Irish players, of course, will be looking to them to try and make it easy for you to pick them as well.
Yeah, hopefully if I think Rory and Graham are, the way they're playing, they should be on the team, and we just have to wait and see what everybody else does. And as I said, I'll be wishing everybody the best of luck, and may the best 12 players make it.
Yeah, and one of the things you must be happy about is the support that you receive from the players in the build-up, because there was a little bit of controversy, but they were firmly behind you.
Yeah, I think that's what won me through in the end. They got me over the line, very strongly came out in my favour, and I'm very grateful for it.
That was Ryder Cup captain Paul McGinley talking to me at half-time in Breffni Park. I'm back with my guests here on Talking Sport this week. Martin McHugh and Alan Foley are with me in studio. Before we heard from Paul McGinley, we were talking about Donegal and possible opponents for them, Monaghan or Cavan. Of course, that semi-final's on. And it's a busy weekend in GAA, of course, because as well as that semi-final, the two semi-finals are on in Leinster. We have the replay in Connacht between Leitrim and London. And we have the club championship here in Donegal as well. We'll look at the qualifiers and those other matches shortly. Let's start with the club championship. And I suppose, Alan, a hint from the squad at the weekend that they would have preferred the games to be set aside and pushed back. You can understand where the County Board are coming from. In three of the sections, they're going to be finished up and down to the last two in those. And in the other section, they'll be finished next week. So this club versus county situation, it's an ongoing problem.
Yeah, it was actually Michael Murphy this year that made the bit of an appeal. Jim McGuinness, he refrained from doing so. I think Michael's got a bit of a knock himself on his ankle, and Neil Gallagher, of course, has been carrying a bit of an injury, so I suppose Glen Swilly...
It would suit Glen Swilly not to play.
It might suit Glen Swilly as well, but I suppose, I don't know if Michael was speaking solely from a club perspective. You could see how many Donegal players, as we were saying earlier, got injuries in Cavan, so... But I suppose if you look at it, Cavan are going to play Monaghan on Saturday night as well. They'll be going full pelt at it as well. That'll give us 3 weeks in. I know there's a group still to finish, but the only real guys in the other group that are going to be playing the following week are the two McGees. More than likely, there's Michael Boyle, I suppose, and Adrian Hanlon too. If you wanted two men to go through, maybe an extra week, you'd probably pick them two lads.
Absolutely. And Martin, let's look at that group, because it was described as a group of death or something like that when the draw was made, and Kilcar are sitting pretty, 2-1s over the big rivals, St Michael's and Glen Swilly. They're already through, so the match against Bundoran, there's no relevance to them. But the key game, I suppose, the big one that people want to see Saturday night down in Dunfanaghy, St Michael's against Glen Swilly, winner take all.
Yeah, it's a big game, and big game. I suppose the great thing is the two games to date, the Kilcar game against Glen Swilly in Towney, and the Kilcar game against St Michael's in Dunfanaghy, like the size of the gates, like the two massive gates, which
best
is great.
Club game in Donegal, somebody said for a long time.
Yeah, I think I wasn't at it, but people said it was the best club game they've seen in Donegal. That it was, suppose we look at it the way that we look at the Donegal county team last Sunday they were playing, look at the way that game was played, the difference. That's just the way football is, and it's great to see a game like that with big scores and good scores. I mean, you had Paddy McBurdy on one side and you had Colin McFadden on the other side, and it was a great game and a very enjoyable match, and spectators sitting on a good day out, and you can't ask for anything more. And everybody, there were people from all over Ireland, and neutrals did say it was one of the best club games they've seen in a long, long time. And
big blow to the losers of this one on Saturday night. I mean, new managers in there, keen to do very well. They're two clubs that would, figure they'll be in the latter stages. With this new system, obviously the chances were that, well, we knew that one of them were going to go out. So losing at the weekend would be a big blow to either St Michael's or Glenswally.
Yeah, it would be. Well, I've always said in all sports in the world, and I think it's the same thing goes for inter-county football, team seeded, the Heineken Cup seeded, even the tennis and Wimbledon seeded, everything's seeded. And I think the championships in Donegal should be seeded. They should be seeded. It's better, it'll improve your league and everything else then, where just teams wouldn't have to worry about just winning a few games and then they would stay in Division 1, they're happy enough. I think the same thing should go at inter-county level. Anyway, that didn't happen. You have three of the top 6, 7 teams, and the one end up in the one group, and that's people say that's the luck of the draw, but I think it's a big game for both teams. It is a big game for both teams. But you'd have to say now, looking at it, and I said I didn't see the games, but listen to people what I'm saying. And if we look at Glenswally, we're probably, Glenswally would have put it up to Kilcar more than St Michael's did in the game, especially the game being in Towney. You'd feel that Kieran Bonner fitter than he was even maybe for the first couple of games. I know if the loss of Neil Gallagher would be a loss, if Michael Murphy's able to play, you would have to say that Glenswally, looking at the games, with St Michael's performance, like I wouldn't say it's Kilcar 6, 7 points up on St Michael's. Last year in the championship, didn't four Masters lose Lacey and Michael Doherty the first half?
That's right.
And still they beat St Michael's. So St Michael's have to prove themselves. They have to prove that that and over dependence maybe on Colin McFadden for scores. So I think you'd have to say Glenswally at this stage, he said, even with the injured Neil Gallagher, you would have to say they're favourites to win the match. Yeah,
interesting one. I mean, the only two teams that are through to the quarter-final so far, St Eunan's and Kilcar. Now, people would say that Glenties, Niamh Connell and Ardra should make it as well. But if you look at the tables, I mean, Glenties would need to lose big against St Eunan's, and Malin would need to win big against Cloughaneely. The Ardra McCool's game is a key game, and then Four Masters you would expect to beat Glenfin. So we probably won't know who's going to come out of those two until those matches are finished on Saturday night, Alan.
Yeah, in Group 1, Charlie, there's a 13-point swing needed between Malin and Niamh Connell. But Malin have got promoted this year. They've won, I think, 5 league games at home already this season. They're a good match for anybody. They were 8 down to Niamh Connell.
That's right.
And a couple of weeks ago, they got the draw. That kept their heads above water. So they also have to win the game first of all to avoid coming last in the group, because they don't want to get that playoff situation. But I suppose if the score comes through, maybe at O'Donnell Park, that Malin are 4 or 5 up at half time, it'll make for a real interesting game between St Eunan's and Niamh Connell, who are a bit of a rivalry in recent years. But of course, Niamh Connell, can still win the group as well, Charlie. So we'll not write them totally off yet.
No, absolutely not. And the Ardra McCool's Four Masters Glenfin, Martin, interesting situation as well. I mean, Ardra are sitting on 4 points, but possibly might not make it if McCool's beat them and Four Masters had a big one over Glenfin. So it's kind of a fascinating end to that group as well.
It is a fascinating end to it, but suppose the questions there you asked yourself is Frank McGlynn going to play? We probably Carl Lacey won't play for Four Masters. Frank McGlynn going to play.
Michael Doherty's out as well.
Doherty's out as well. Paddy McGrath, I think, is very doubtful. He's picked up a groin injury, and he's a big doubt as well. So that makes the difference. I still think that Four Masters and Ardra will go through out of that group. You still think, but I know Lacey and Michael Doherty's a big blow to them. So listen, it's a difficult one, as you said, to call. I think I was at the Ardra Four Masters game, and I was impressed with Ardra that day. Steve McHugh at full forward, they had Brendan Boyle back in the midfield. And Ardra, in fairness, they dug deep, back to the old Ardra, that great character
good championship
and spirit.
Team.
Showed that great champ spirit. And a fair bit of pace about them, and it was good performance, a good all round performance by them that day, and that was, I just think that they've played a long time in Division 1. I think I don't remember them not in Division 1. So from that, I think Ardra will come through anyway, and I think the other one's harder to call. Four Masters, you would expect them to come through. It's a wee bit harder to call, but Glenfin without Frank McGlynn, that's Glenfin.
So Ardra and Four Masters come through in that one. St Eunan's and Niamh Connell in the other one, and Glenswally or St Michael's. I'll ask you both. Glenswally or St Michael's.
I think Charlie's gone for Glenswally there, and I think I would have too, but I think Neil is a massive loss to them in the middle of the field, Charlie, and I'm not sure how fit Michael Murphy's going to be. St Michael's are a strong team too. They've had a decent enough league, but they've finished. They were up to 3rd, I think, there, Charlie, and then kind of tailed off lately.
Poor in the championship.
They have been poor in the championship, yeah. But I suppose if you look at the points difference, they're only -2 points, is it, or -3?
Yeah.
So I suppose they weren't too far off, but I think I'll go for St Michael's that one. And
very good. I always like when I get different opinion. We won't deal with Section 3 because they're all in 1 point, and no matter what happens this weekend, that's going to go to the following weekend anyway before we know exactly what's going to happen. Well, it was a busy weekend in sport last weekend, of course. We'll say well done to young Sam Moffat, winning the Donegal International Rally. Gary Jennings and Neil Doherty looked as if they'd going to win it, of course, with a minute lead at the end of Saturday, but there was a situation there where they came out of service early on, got a 3-minute penalty, and that really cost them the event, which I suppose is very disappointing for them. The Lions beat Australia. The second test on this weekend. Paul O'Connell is going to stay there, but he won't be playing any further part. Earlier this week, Rafa Nadal went out of Wimbledon, so it just shows you shocks are possible no matter what the sport is. And in golf, Ernie Els won the BMW. A couple of years ago, we were writing him off, saying he was finished. He's won the British Open since, and he's in good shape now to retain that title or defend that title. And a guy called Ken Duke, Martin, you'll be interested in this, 44 years of age. He was playing his 187th event on the PGA Tour, the Travellers' Championship, and he finally got a victory at 44. And was he a happy man or what? So it just shows you age is no barrier.
Hope for us all, Charlie.
Hope for everybody, Martin. Hope for everybody. The qualifiers. I was reading where Tyrone have the two McMahons doubtful, have Stephen O'Neill doubtful, and we know that Niall Morgan's out. Now, if they go without Stephen O'Neill and the two McMahons down to Offaly, they're going to face a challenge.
Yeah, they will face a challenge, but then the week after, Offaly were beaten by Kildare. The two of their players, I think the fullback they played in the National League, who only was coming back from injury, and the midfielder Brian Connor, Richie Connor's son, have actually gone off to America to play for Donegal in New York, actually, but they've gone off to America. So I just look at, I still think that, maybe if Tyrone were playing some of the stronger teams, and but I still think Tyrone have enough. We look at it. O'Neill has been carrying injuries a lot at the minute. He's been unfortunate with injuries. Joe McMahon to me is a colossal loss to him in that midfield area. But if Aidan Cassidy's back, Cassidy's an unsung hero for Tyrone and the kind of player you want on your team, work on that area. So I think Joe McMahon's lost, and then they've lost 3 or 4 of the full back line they played against Donegal or Cal McCarran.
PJ Qunn's gone, yeah.
PJ Quinn left the panel. Cal McCarran had an operation. Darren McCarran got his nose broken 3 times in a week. Yeah. So they've lost players and that full back line as well. So probably Conor Gormley will go into the full back line. But they have the Mark Donnelly's, the Matthew Donnelly's, the Martin Pemrose, Peter
still
Hart.
Enough to win it.
They still have enough to win it. You feel they've enough to beat Offaly. And Offaly, then probably if they go down with the attitude that they're a very good team, thinking we're just to turn up to win this game, they could get caught. But if they go down with the attitude, look, we have a lot of work to do. We're not maybe as good a team as everybody makes us out to be, and we have to work hard here. They'll win the match. It'll be down to that there, that attitude, and I think they're bigger test for Tyrone ahead, but I think Tyrone won it.
Yeah. What about your Sligo connections, Alan? I had Brendan Kilcoyne in here last week and the head was down when we started talking about the Connacht Championship and that. I mean, they're going to Derry. Derry are taking them out to Owenbeg. Interestingly, I mean, you can't see Sligo winning there, can you?
I think their goose is cooked, Charlie, really. Sligo's. I think Derry away. Derry were pretty good against Down in the first half, very open. Of course, they've won Division 2 this year. Brian McGyver's a good operator, and I think with Sligo, I think really the 2010 Connacht final against Roscommon, when they'd already beaten Galway, already beaten Mayo, and went in and flumped and lost, that was that team's big opportunity.
Tom Comack told me before that, he probably told you as well, we have the Indian sign in Sligo and we'll beat them.
Says, in fairness, Tom said that week that Roscommon people were never afraid of Sligo growing up, so why should they start now? But I think that
proved to be right.
Absolutely, that was Sligo's big chance, and I think really they've been on the slide since then, because remember, like Jim McGuinness's first game, I think Donegal trailed them by 8 or 9 points and Balbafe scraped a draw. Now Donegal are Ireland champions and Sligo are losing to London, so it's funny the way football can go.
Even O'Hara didn't miss the chance to have a go when he got it, Martin, on RTE. He unloaded, as they say, and didn't hold back.
Yeah, he did. It looked like a personal thing more than anything else, and you just think a lot of people would be saying they would hope the Sligo would win this match because of that reason alone. I think Kevin Walsh probably came out of the whole thing better than Eamon O'Hara. Maybe he did in the end up, because he held his dignity in the whole thing. I just think that David Kelly's back for Sligo and back playing well. They played Laois in a challenge game and drew there last week. Got a draw out of it. So, and interestingly, Kevin Walsh has said that he likes managing a Sligo team that are underdogs playing against better teams. Sligo are poor, he says, when they're playing against a team. They don't have that motivation there.
Where they're favourites in a match.
And they don't. And he said that. So listen, I still think Derry will win it and probably won it well. I think Sligo, you said, had their chance. I think the Sligo team in the past used to produce these big games that we didn't know where they are. I think that's gone out of them now. And PG McCluskey back for Derry. But if Owen Bradley doesn't play and David Kelly does play, it makes a wee bit of a difference. But I think Derry with PG McCluskey definitely back in the middle of the field, and that Derry team are still better than they were the second half against Down. Gerard O'Kane assuming they'd left the panel and is back in the panel again. Or I know
does that indicate that everything's not just as it should be, or
I'll
the way
tell
you like it?
You're right, Charlie, and I'll tell you where they're at now at the minute. They're at a crossroads. They're not a bad side, and they can go forward now or go backwards to where they were.
But sure,
they're
Martin,
at that crossroads now.
They flattered to deceive so often in the past.
I know, Charlie, but I think now at the minute they've got a lot of good players, and they seem to be hard to manage or something. I don't know what it is. A lot of managers struggle with them there, and that there. And I think that the defeat against Down, because they had the game won at half time. It was a tough one to take. It's always a hard one to get over that there. And they're struggling to get over that there. But I think if they can get the thing up and running again, interestingly, they're going to Owenbeg with the game. That's very interesting to see that. But I still think Derry, I think this Derry team's not bad, particularly when Owen Bradley's playing now. I know he has that AC joint in his shoulder. He's not right for it, but I'd say they're going to maybe have to play him. Now, maybe the club or that won't be too happy with that there, down there with the championship. But it looks like they're going to play him. So I think they just have too much, especially up front.
Well, we know of another team that people said was hard to manage as well, and I think they're all Ireland champions now.
They were never hard to manage, Charlie.
Well, if you believe it. Alan Fermanagh, disappointing against Cavan. My God, I watched that game, and I actually was turning over and back. It was that bad. They didn't score for 25 minutes. I think, Martin, were you at that game?
Yeah, I was doing
You were at that game, yeah. You were doing that game. You were. Of course you were, doing the commentary. But, Fermanagh were so bad. And then they came back and they got close again to Cavan, and Cavan had done enough early on. But they go down to Westmeath, got to the Division 2 final. You suspect that'll be a bridge too far for them as well.
You'd think Peter Canavan they won 7 out of 7 in Division 4 last year, then they lost the final. This year they came 3rd or 4th, I think, in Division 3, but he still hasn't won a championship game yet. So as you said, the poor start against Cavan really had them. They were paddling into the tide that day, really, from day one. They could have maybe scraped something out of it late in the day, but I think all in all, Cavan were the better team that day. And you'd think a game in Mullingar just would be too much for them. Like Westmeath, of course, are a Division 1 team now. They got the league final in Division 2.
Yeah.
And they have a decent inside line. Glennon and Desi Dolan, the likes of them lads, are still in there. So even though they went down pretty heavily to Dublin, they put up a good enough score against Carlow, see there in the first round, 315 to 110. So I really would doubt if Fermanagh can pull this one off.
Okay. Martin, I'll just give you the fixtures. Give me who you think are going to win them. Armagh, Wicklow.
Armagh at home, yeah.
Galway, Tip.
Galway have played a lot of challenge games. You don't put Euros on Galway normally because they've let you down. I'd say if you're back in Galway in the back door, since you expect them to win every day in their team,
you've never won a back door match.
Your accumulator and all that stuff. People do.
Michael McGinn's carrying an injury.
Galway Tipperary have 5 players missing from the championship. The team that played the championship. I expect Galway to win that game at home.
Louth and Antrim.
Yeah, Louth are better than, in my opinion, are a better team than maybe they think themselves, and then they put pressure on themselves and they don't deliver. And Louth normally against a team at the same level themselves, a wee bit below, they lose to them. If they can just get that mental end of it right, Louth, definitely. I saw Antrim against Monaghan, they were terrible. I don't know what they're going to do, Antrim, with the system play. I'd have to say Louth.
Okay. Longford, Limerick.
Yeah, that's a difficult one.
Tricky one, that.
A lot of people in Longford are saying that Longford have no interest anymore, that they've lost interest in this Glen Ryan's last game they played. So if that's true, you have to go for Limerick. If that's true, I don't know. I'm just hearing that coming out of Longford that they've lost interest in the thing. They feel that Glen Ryan's ready to move on himself. So it's just disappointing because he did a lot of good work with him and you're always remembered. But listen, if you're a manager, normally you don't finish on a good note.
No.
There's very few of them.
That's true.
Do like Liam Shady, probably manager like that, leave after winning All Ireland or someone, but you normally don't finish on a good note.
And the last one, interestingly, Friday night for the first time, a championship match and a big derby match, Carlow against Laois. Laois surely won that one, will they?
Yeah. Laois will win it. Carlow have Brendan Murphy playing him at full forward. They'll be trying to get ball into him. Laois are going well. Seemingly Kinston going well, but Laois are another team like Louth. You just don't. You think they're going well. They're a better side than they're able, but for some reason they're not able to get themselves to a level. Not able to motivate themselves. You think of the hammering they give Donegal out and here in Letterkenny and that league match. They
looked very good.
They
that
looked
day.
Like All Ireland champions that day, and Donegal go on to win an All Ireland after that, and Laois have gone nowhere. So I just think they're still good enough to. They're definitely good enough to beat. There's a disappointing defeat to Louth, but they're good enough to beat Carlow.
Yeah. And Alan, I hate to admit it, but we were stuck in the car for a long time. Everybody was in Cavan last Sunday. Traffic mismanagement, I think, is the best way to put it. But I was in the car with Cairns Rotherham, and we were listening to the Connacht semi-final between Leitrim and London. And I hate to admit this, but it was actually exciting because it was close and there were one leading and one, and it ended up in a draw. Does it say as much about where Connacht football is that London have beaten Sligo and drawn with Leitrim and we're very close to being in a Connacht final?
It probably does, Charlie, because they led that game by 2 points in the closing stages, and Leitrim were actually glad to get the draw out of it at home. I suppose there's a bit of a novelty factor. That's why it's a bit exciting. But I think you said in the show last week you'd fear to think what Mayo would do to or London, pardon me, in a Connacht final. I know London ran Mayo a couple of years ago, pretty close there, but I think Mayo now are a different animal. As I said, there's a bit of novelty value in it, and I also think it's fair enough that the replay is in Roscommon. I don't know what you think about that, Martin, but I suppose like London are guaranteed their home fixture every single year, which most counties would love. Even from a half Sligo man here, I'm sure Sligo would be more than happy to get a home draw every year.
I think they probably, when you look at the decision, should have been to play extra time, really.
Yeah.
Fairness to London, because I heard they were still in the hotel on Monday morning, the London players, so they head back to come back next weekend again, from that. It's not easy, but they should have just said, look, the fact is London, we play extra time,
get a result.
Play extra time, ends and draw, maybe then but I thought they should have played extra time and that there. But then when I only saw the highlights that night on TV, and I was just looking at where they were, the game was ever taken, a London player went through and he put the ball over the bar when he should have squared it and the ball was in the net and the game was over. That's just the difference in teams do, whenever. But listen, I suppose the novelty of some team being in the Connacht final, great, but Mayo they're so far ahead of everything else in London. Again, I think in Connacht place, I think it should be seeded. Things should be seeded because their big game of the year is the Connacht final, and they're going to end up with a Division 4 team against one of the favourites of Ireland in a final. I don't know, is that any good for anybody?
Is there any benefit to Mayo? What's happened in the Connacht Championship this year?
No, not one. But the land, if they get a bad draw in the quarter final, if they got, just say teams is there at the minute, if they got down, Kildare, Tyrone, team like that there in the quarter final,
Kerry or Cork are going to be there.
Kerry or Cork is right. They could get caught. Even you never, and just that's where, and they don't know where they're at, but they are. Alan's just said it. They're definitely a different animal. They're a wounded animal, and they're dangerous. Wounded animals always dangerous, and they are a different team this year. They're the most impressive team I've seen. We have to look at it. Roscommon and Galway and that. These teams they're still not bad teams. Like Galway beat Derry and Derry got promotion out of the National League, so not that bad team. So they are really putting teams away. They're hungry, And I suppose the other game, Charlie, is the Dublin Kildare game.
Go ahead in that
just
one.
To look at taking it, I just heard the Kildare played Roscommon in a challenge game, and they were 12-0 up at one stage, and they were 18-0 up at one stage in the game. So I think the word coming out of Kildare is this is the best prepared Kildare team McGinley has ever prepared. This is the game he's been waiting for. And now's the test coming.
He's been waiting a long time to deliver.
6 years.
He's been waiting a long time to deliver.
I know that, but
is there too much hype about McGinley?
I don't want this year. There's not as much hype about it this year. But what's an interesting one about that game? It's the appointment of Joe McCullen to ref it.
Yeah.
Now I know Kerry weren't happy with that, but Shani Johnson is from Cavan and is playing for Kildare, and Cavan people are not happy. So the appointment is wrong. It's not fair on Joe McCullen. It's not fair on the two teams. I don't know who came up with that idea. They mustn't put. Maybe they got no thought into these things. I don't know.
Yeah. Must counterbalance is A versus B refereeing the Dublin Challenge games.
No, that's what they were saying he used to. I don't know if that's true or not.
Who did that?
I don't think it was true.
They were saying he was that year that Kerry and Dublin met in All Ireland final. He was refereeing A versus game. I don't really think that's true.
No, I think it was unfair.
Right. Let's say that this is the best prepared Kildare team under McGinley ever. Is it good to be good enough to beat Dublin?
You probably still say you go for Dublin, because the way Dublin are at. But they're going to ask questions on them. They definitely have to ask questions on them in the sense of they're going to have to keep it very tight. They're going what's Dublin about? They're about pace, power. Pace is the big thing. So you've got to cut down that pace on them. You've got to stay in the game, and you can't afford to concede goals against Dublin. If you look at Donegal, who are All Ireland champions, Donegal have conceded 4 goals, I think, isn't that right? 4 goals on them, they've got conceded. And 2 of them were against Cavan when it didn't really matter late in the game.
Rebound as well,
2 of them against Cavan late in the game. The Kerry one was probably the one that could have made a difference. And wasn't the other one against Cork came very late in the game. So you can say Donegal have only conceded 1 goal. So you have to keep goals important. Dublin need goals, so I think it's important Kildare keep out the goals. I think it'll be a good game. I'm looking forward to it. I'm working on it. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I think it'll be the first really good game we're going to see this year in Croke Park.
Hopefully. Well, will the one before it be any good? Meath against Wexford, Alan? Because I'll tell you what, Meath have come back from the dead. Their performance earlier on this season was abysmal.
Yeah, absolutely. They started off even the league campaign pretty poorly, but then they made it through Division 3, albeit. And even there was... I'm surprised they've actually got this far in Leinster, to tell you the truth. They have a team... I know Martin had a couple of things to say about them not so long ago, but I don't think they're anywhere near the standard they're at. And I know they come back and says they were in All-Ireland semi-finals, I think 2007, 2009. I'd be very, very surprised if they got anywhere near that at this stage. Leinster final... probably about as good as it's going to get for them right now, because that side of the draw is particularly weak this year in Leinster, with the fact that Dublin were on the other side with even Westmeath and Kildare, as we said there. So I don't know, Wexford aren't a bad side either, and they've probably missed out once or twice on a Leinster title. I think there was one year there was an own
very
goal
close,
there and a
that's right,
goalkeeping mistake. So
Dublin nearly beaten. Yeah,
they did. But
Meath are just poor side.
Yeah.
And they just have to admit that. The problem is that Meath haven't admitted that themselves and sorted out. They're just they're where they're at the minute. That's it. They've Graham Riley, an exceptional player, McGinley team in Ireland. And, times they show some, but no, I still think they'll probably beat Wexford because that experience, they love Croke Park. They love playing in Croke Park. They feel
So the final, who? Meath and who?
Meath and Dublin, I think, will still be in the final.
I suppose
All right, Alan, Harps are back out this weekend again, and it's interesting just looking at the pattern with them. They started well and they faded towards the latter half of the first half of the league. They're the only team to have beaten Longford twice. They only have 5 victories. I mean, it's been a real up and down stuff, and now they're 6th in the table, so they need a run of wins. Yeah,
they're 6th in the table. Peter Hutton said he's going to take the positive slant. They're only 4 points off second, which I think is Athlone Town at the minute. It's interesting, the night they played Derry in the League Cup, they played largely a second string team, and Derry had a much stronger team on, and Harps really should have beat them that night. Paul McGinley had a penalty to win it. He hit the base of the post, and Derry won, as they always do against Harps. But since then, Harps have only managed to pick up 1 point from 12 in the league, and the last defeat against Salt Hill Devon, who hadn't won at home all season, was particularly disappointing. But I suppose this time last year, Charlie, they went in a 10-game unbeaten run after the summer break. They didn't lose again. I think it was October. So they really need something like that to get back into the race now at the minute.
And they play Waterford this weekend, and I think they've got Merview and Longford then inside the month as well. Right, so we'll know at the end of July where they're at.
Absolutely. Like in the first series of games, they had the same fixtures. They came out with 7 points out of that. They drew down in Waterford. They beat, I think, Cove Ramblers are also in there.
That's right,
and then, Merview, but did need something similar like that again. I suppose the real plus point has been Sean McCarran's form this season. But
fantastic.
He's really the only one. Some days you watch Harps, you think they're promotion material. Other days you're just not too sure.
What's new?
It's just the habits of a lifetime.
Habits of a lifetime. Derry play Bohemians at the start of the second half of the league. Derry are up in second spot behind Pats and do have a game in hand. They're only 3 points behind them. And Sligo, who started off the season as if they were going to bulldoze everybody down to third, so plenty to do there. And finally, Ulster Senior League. There was just one game this week. The young teams met. Fanet, fielding the youngest team I've ever seen them fielding, were beaten 4-1 by Derry City. And the big game, Alan, just very finally and briefly, on Sunday, top of the table, Drumkeen, Cockhill Celtic. I heard somebody saying it's a 2-horse race. Very early to be talking like that in the Ulster Senior League, but this is a huge game on Sunday.
Yeah, I think even the gap between second and third at the minute, Charlie, Cockhill second, third is Kildrum Tigers. There's 9 points there, 17-8 I think is the difference. Drumkeen have won 6 from 6. They've got a lot of new players in there. They're really going well. Cockhill are the best footballing side. A lot of people involved in the league will tell you they only drew with Letterkenny on Sunday, so they're a point behind with a game more played as well. So if Drumkeen can win this game, they're at home. It'll really, give them
big boost,
another bit of a boost, because 6 out of 6 is an unbelievable start for Drumkeen, Charlie.
Yeah. Martin, final word, Monaghan and Cavan. I don't think you said who you thought would win. I know you have to kind of sit on the fence a wee bit here with your Cavan connections and all that sort of stuff. Who would you prefer to see winning on Sunday from a Donegal perspective?
Well, you'd probably say that one of the more experienced teams, so you'd say maybe Donegal, they've beaten Cavan the last 2 years. You'd rather maybe meet Cavan because they're young. What you have here, Charlie, quickly, is you have a young, hungry Cavan team, really hungry and young and playing with a system against a very experienced Monaghan team who need to get over the line and need to win this game. I think it's a toss of a coin. I still think maybe the way Gaelic football's going at the minute, the young, hungry team might just have that wee bit of an advantage if they can get ball into. Keating's really playing well. He's probably one of the players of the championship to date, in fairness to him. I think that way. Monaghan have maybe 4 very quality players that nobody else would have. So I just think that I'll just say Cavan if I say, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't rule out a first draw in this match.
Does anybody know when Donegal and Cavan last met in an Ulster final?
1983, is that right?
Well, I played in 1983 against them, Cavan. Yeah, is that the last time we met?
Last time in
I think
final.
The last time the 3 teams left in Ulster were Cavan, Monaghan and Donegal was 83. I checked that last week, so maybe that'll be the same. You would have played 83.
30 years ago?
30 years ago.
It was interesting. Yeah, I was saying that to somebody. You have Cavan, Donegal and Monaghan left in it, and you have Monaghan, Cavan minors in it still.
That's right.
So you've only Tyrone. Normally it's always the other way, but you've only got Tyrone.
Absolutely. That's it for this week. From myself, Charlie Collins. You've been listening to Talking Sport with my guests, Martin McHugh and Alan Foley. We'll be back to do it all again next week.